Welcome back to the Natural Bodybuilding and Chill podcast, episode number 12, with yours truly, Gary Glutes Amlinger. Today, I am going to go over my training and nutrition currently, as well as my competition prep plans for this year. Now, I'd like to preface this by saying I am not 100% sure I'm competing, but I am about 90% sure at the moment. So I will know more in about 10 weeks or so if I'm going to pull the trigger on prep, but it is looking good at the moment. The way I run my training is derived from the double progression scheme model of periodization. I'm going to go over that with you guys in detail because I do get a lot of questions on my training mostly. Basically, they call it double progression because you're attempting to add either repetitions or load to each set within the given RPE. Okay, so I gave you guys an example here of a 4-month training block that I would run through. Each training block usually has a set repetition range that I work through. So, for example, we'll say this is the 6 to 8 repetition range we're targeting for this 4-week block. Now, the first week, I not always, but usually implement new movements. So anytime you implement a new movement, you don't want to hit the gas pedal too hard because you need to give your body a bit of time to acclimate to that movement and quote unquote get better at that movement. Now, it doesn't take long, we're talking like a week, maybe 2 weeks. The adaptations for that specific movement, are going to be there. That's why I usually take that week one of a new training phase and train it at a lower RPE as well, because we're not interested too much in progressively overloading at this point, which is the first week of the program. We want to get our body used to the new stimulus, if you will. For the first week, what I usually do is I train at the lowest end of the rep range, which is 6 repetitions. Now, week two, what I'll do is I'll use the same weight that I used during week one, but now I'm going to attempt to add 1 or 2 repetitions per set. Okay. Now, in the event that I could exceed 2 repetitions, so let's say I can get 9 repetitions or 10 repetitions on a set, which exceeds this rep range of 6 to 8, what I'll do is I'll revert back to 6 and then start adding load to the bar. Okay, that's the most important part of this whole thing. If you can grasp that, then you understand double progression scheme. Week 2 and week 3 for this block is going to be trying to add reps or load, and that's where double progression scheme comes from, because you're trying to add reps or load, which is both a form of progressive overload, which is extremely important for muscle growth. And that final week, this will be our deload week. So we'll revert back to doing six reps. And usually during the 4th week is a lower RPE because I'm deloading. So it's not going to be much lower than usual, but the sets do come down during a deload. I don't really lower intensity all that much. If anyone hasn't used this and then you jump to this style of periodization, you should see a ton of progress very quickly. And I will go over a few more notes on this scheme of periodization here to help you guys out. Now, anytime you're training through a specific training phase, the exercise selection and exercise order does not change. I keep that the same. The reason being is we're trying to get good at these movements and trying to progressively overload these movements. So if I keep swapping in and out exercises, then I'm never going to really get good at these movements to be able to add reps and load. Now, RPE, relative perceived exertion, this is how we gauge intensity for our sets. And that usually peaks, for this specific example, weeks 2 and 3. We're going to just be training at a higher intensity during 2 and 3, and usually 1 and 4 during a 4-week block. The intensity is a little lower. Again, it's not too low, but the first week, as I explained, the RPE is going to be a little lower. And also the final week where I deload, RPE might come down a little, but it's mainly the sets that come down for my deloads. I'm also explaining here, where I span my RPE. It could be anywhere from 6 to 10. I would say on average, I'm averaging around an 8 RPE for most of my sets. But again, this depends on the training phase as well as the specific microcycle we're training in. And my repetition tempo is pretty simple. Now, I will throw in pauses here and there, but that's more of like an on the fly type thing. I don't really program them too much. My general repetition tempo is just controlling the eccentric and then using a very forceful concentric phase. So I'm not purposefully trying to slow down the concentric. I am purposefully trying to slow down the lowering phase or the eccentric a little, but not too long. Maybe say 1 to 2 seconds on the way down and a very forceful explosive concentric phase on the way up. So that's really how I train most of my sets. So I hope that gave you more of an insight on how I program training and how I train. Now, we didn't go into like super detail, but at least you guys got a good background on what I do. This is an example of how I eat, flexible dieting. At this point, most people know how flexible dieting is. You're eating, a variety of foods, and most of the time you're trying to hit your macros, if you will, which is your protein, carbs, and fats. So for me, I feel good at 4 feedings per day, and I'm eating about 4,000, 4,300 calories a day. So it's going to come out to like 1,000 calories per meal on average. I do have my highest calories right before I train because my sessions last so long. They last 3 to 4 hours. That's one reason why I have a lot of calories before I train. And then pre-bed, right before sleep, I'm pounding down the calories as well because we're going to be fasting for, let's say, 7 to 8 hours when you're sleeping. And I like to have like a steady flow of like slow digesting carbs and high protein and high fat throughout the night to kind of keep me satiated as I sleep. Now, this works out for me because I do take in a lot of protein, but I'm taking in about 65 grams of protein per day, or I'm sorry, per feeding times four, which is a hefty amount of protein. Again, a lot of people aren't going to be having that much protein, but one thing I like to tell clients in particular is I want them to ingest 37 grams of high quality protein per meal if possible. It's going to be different for everybody, but usually like a meat source, like a chicken or a steak, you want to nail that 37 grams. I think it's important. You don't want too much junk protein because you're getting a lot of protein from oats and vegetables and breads and things like that. So we got to make sure that we're doing ourselves justice and taking in that high quality protein. So the next one is going to be vegetables and fruits. Green leafy vegetables are super high in nutrients, so I do prioritize those. But at the same time, I do want to span, the rainbow, if you will, and eat as many different colored vegetables and fruits as possible to really get all my micronutrient needs. So that's super important just for health in general. Doesn't even have to be for bodybuilding. Now, we went over my high calorie meals. So for me, like I digest my pre-workout meal about an hour and a half before training. That's like a sweet spot for me. Some people need longer. Some people are like they could eat, 45 minutes later they can go train. So that's not a hard and fast rule. Again, I'm just sharing, with you guys what I do. And my pre-bed meal, again, 2 to 2.5 hours before sleep is fine for me. But that's just the amount of time I need to really digest my meal before sleeping. Because if I sleep on a full stomach, I will not sleep well. Again, this is individual. I know some people could have a Thanksgiving dinner and just fall asleep. Immediately after training, I will only have a whey protein shake, and that's going to be over 37 grams of whey protein. But that's usually what I have immediately after training. An hour later, I will have my full meal. I also take in about 60 grams of sugar from Gatorade during training. Again, my training sessions last long. Is it needed for most people? Probably not. Staple supplements is been beaten to death at this point, but creatine monohydrate. I'm currently taking Optimum Nutrition pre-workout, which I really love. It also has extra creatine in there, which is great. Vitamin D3, omega-3 fish oils. I'm taking Nutrex essential amino acids during training again because my sessions last so long. I want some amino acids in my bloodstream. And your Optimum Nutrition Gold Standard Whey Protein. It's been around for decades now, and it's a phenomenal protein if you guys haven't tried it. That's all I'm going to really cover in terms of my nutrition and training at the moment. I will most likely cover things in greater detail if and when I start prep this year. My competition prep notes here. So we're attempting to start prep April 1st and end with the WNBF World Championships on November 23rd. So that whole time span will equate to about 34 weeks, which is roughly 8.5 months. Probably going to start prep around 220. I would say I'm around 217 right now. And the end weight or the expected end weight, which I'll get on stage at, I'm saying around 200. You never really know. This is a guesstimate. So I was 196 about on stage at Worlds in 2022. That'll be about 3 years away from the stage if I do compete this year. And I feel like 4 pounds of muscle, judging by my physique and how the bigger muscle groups have grown so much, I would say that I accrued around 4 pounds of muscle, but again, we'll have to see as we diet down and unveil our physique. So I put down a competition season list that's tentative, but right now my aim is the WNBF Dubai, September 21st, WNBF Taiwan, October 5th, WNBF Malaysia, not sure of the exact date, but it looks like early November, late October. And then we will finish it off in California, November 23rd for the WNBF World Championships. So that is my current plan. Now, other competitions I'm looking at are the Monster Mash in Boston. I'm also looking at the Natural Mania in New York. These are the competitions that are in my sights right now. Now, this is going to be a short podcast, but I do have quite a few guests lined up for you guys. Super excited to get these people on. Malcolm Cooper, who is a WNBF professional natural bodybuilder. He's also a world-class WNBF natural bodybuilder. He medaled at Worlds, I believe it was 2023. A world-class natural bodybuilder for you guys. It should be a great talk. I'm really looking forward to hearing from him. My client, Tristan Trimble, he's an IPE professional natural bodybuilder, another excellent organization for natural bodybuilding. Abdullah Fadil, INBF amateur natural bodybuilder, but his transformation is insane. I really feel like a lot of people could resonate with Abdullah. Wait till you guys see where he came from and where he is now, and also where he's going. I mean, he's really pushing hard to turn pro in the WNBF. Very excited to speak to him. And the Strength Guys president and world champion natural powerlifting coach, Jason Tremblay, who is also my coach. I put world champion natural powerlifting coach because he coaches Taylor Atwood, who's a multiple time world champion natural powerlifter in the IPF. Jason is also a bodybuilding coach, but I'm his only bodybuilding client. So we could get into the weeds with Jason because I've never really had him on my Instagram, my old YouTube channel. It's about time that I introduce you guys to who I believe is one of the best bodybuilding coaches in the world and who's also mentored me for over 10 years. So looking forward to that. Now, if you guys have any questions for these guests, please just drop a comment in this video and I'll see if I can get to asking these guys. I know I have a lot of questions for them. These are going to be excellent chats, but yeah, that's really it. I covered everything I wanted to cover today. Definitely look out for these next podcast episodes. I hope you guys had an awesome new year. Happy New Year. Stay safe, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.